I pray you receive the person who is truly best for you. I want you to get all the blessings God has waiting for you. And so my hope when I do these videos is to make sure that you are not just prepared to receive it, but that you have the tools in order to nurture it, sustain it, and experience the fullness and the greatness of all the things that God wants to put in front of you. And more specifically right now when it comes to relationships. But here's the thing. A lot of people, and it may be you as I would assume, are praying for God to send that one, right? And I know we have a lot of questions about how do we even know they're the one, but I wanted to focus real quick on what to do when we even think they might be the one. Because I've seen so many situations go in various different directions because we don't take the necessary steps. And when we meet someone that we feel like might be God sent, it can be very easy to get so excited that we lose sight of the approach we need to take in order to ensure that this is successfully navigated. And that we also understand the different factors that can come into play when we meet that person that we either feel is the one or may genuinely actually be the one God has for you. So the first thing I want you to be mindful of when God sends the one is to slow down and pray more. So quick story. There was a woman where she actually went through a relationship and things seemed to be going well, all right? And she was actually with this person for years. So when I say things were going well, I want to say initially they were, but eventually things were souring. Anyway, she ends up in a heartbreak and after being years with this guy. And after the heartbreak, she ends up, I want to say like after a few days of kind of, crying and letting things out, she prays and was just asking God, please, send this person, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Please send the man for me. And so I want to say the very next day she goes out. She goes to this networking event and she's there with her friends, sitting down, they're talking and eating or whatever. And she says this guy walks in the room and immediately it was like, oh, like, the lights from the sky comes down, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh, who is this guy, right? And so she ends up talking to him. They end up hitting it off. And she's like, this has gotta be from God. Because I mean, the man came in, he looked amazing to her. He had all these great qualities. They hit it off. And the fact that he showed up in her life right after she prayed, she figured this had to be from God. So of course she jumps in head first and is all about it. They start dating. They were dating for a couple months. And then a couple months in, and I'm not sure why it took this long for this to come about, but a couple months in, she, I guess, finally reveals that she's waiting till marriage to have sex. And the guy's like, oh, hell no. That ain't working for me. I'm not doing it. Sorry, goodbye. She was devastated. And she was mad at God. Now, let me just make this very clear. I gave an example with a woman. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna give another story with a man. Because my point was gonna be this whole video is for men and women. All right. But I'm gonna also give a story with a man that it happened to. So, anyways, she was mad at God. All right. And I had to stop her and I said, but listen, did you ever stop and ask God if this man was for you? And she said no. And I said, okay, so you saw what you thought could be the one. But instead of asking God how to proceed, you jumped at you got ahead of yourself. And you were not able to see the red flags, because I'm sure there were red flags before that conversation happened. But she latched on to the fantasy of it all and the hype of it all that she set herself up for disappointment. But now let's look at the other angle, and I'm going to use a man right now. There's a man I know, met a woman, and they kind of met on social media. They interacted on social media, took it to the phone, and again, hit it off immediately, all right? Immediately. And felt a connection like no other. And so I want to say a couple weeks into dating, everything is going really well. It's intense. It's moving kind of fast. They hadn't officially gotten a relationship yet or anything like that. But, them both being spiritual, she was like, pray about it. Like, pray about, if I'm the one for you, if this is, we should move forward, what should we do here? Right? And so he was hesitant. The guy was kind of scared because he really liked this woman and he wasn't sure what he was going to hear from God. But he did it. And so he prayed and he heard God say, yes, this is the woman for him. And so he took that yes and he ran with that yes, okay? That's all he needed to hear because he was already into her. So this was just confirmation for him. So boom, head first. Make a long story short, things start getting thrown off. Because you got to understand, when two people have a connection, I think there's this belief that everything's just going to run smoothly. That's not true. Connections are very intense. They can make people feel very vulnerable. If there's any lack of healing, it will get exposed. There's a lot that can go wrong if we do not handle it correctly. But again, and the handling it correctly is the point that I made. You gotta slow down and pray some more. Because the mistake that man made is no different than the mistake the woman made. In the sense that for the woman, she never even asked God if this was the man for her. For the man, he didn't ask God how to proceed. When we feel like we have met the one, whether they are or they aren't, we need to make sure we verify with God. And then we need to ask God, how do we proceed? Because sometimes you can meet that person. God could send you the one, but that doesn't mean it's time for a romantic relationship with them. I wholeheartedly believe, and I say with confidence, that right person, wrong time does exist. There's a purpose for why God would let you cross paths with the person who is for you, even though it's not time to be with them. Because many people say, but why would God do that to you? Why would God bring this person in my life right now? Listen, this is just one analogy, all right? Think about it if you were a parent and you have a child and your child has been asking you to buy them a car, right? And you absolutely have a car for them. You plan on buying them the car. You know what's for them. You're going to take care of it. But you need them to gain some certain skills. You need them to get some things in order to become more responsible, okay? Before you can hand this car over to them. Now, this kid is constantly asking you, how I'm waiting for this car. When am I going to get this car? And you're like, trust me, you're going to do what I need you to do, right? But they're still just focused on the car. They want the car so bad. And so one day you say, you know what? I'm going to show you the car I got for you. Here's the car. This is to show you that I already took care of this. Now that you see it's here, go do the work that I've been telling you to do. And that's exactly what God does sometimes. It's like, here's the blessing. Here's what I have for you. It's coming. It exists. It's right here. But I need you to do the things I've been trying to tell you to do. I need to wake you up. And sometimes we don't wake up until we believe it's even there for us to go after. Because it's very easy to lose faith, to lose motivation, to lose the willingness to put in the work if we don't think the prize exists on the other side. Now, I'm not saying this is going to always be the way it works out, but I do believe that can happen. I do believe that it has happened to many of you. And so this is one reason why we are allowed to cross paths with an individual before it's time, as well as that person may be what triggers certain things in us that need to come about before we can come together with them. But to get back to the original point, this is why it's not just about asking God if they are for us, it's asking God how we proceed. Because we have a very bad habit of once we get the blessing, we think we don't need his guidance anymore. We think we're good now. Oh, I always knew how to be in a relationship, so I'm going to be okay. No, you don't know what's going to be required of you in this situation specifically. You may not understand the purpose that needs to be carried out. You may not understand the small little details that need to be handled a certain kind of way in order to make sure you guys do not fail and fulfill the mission together. So it's important that we don't just toss God aside when we feel like he sent us the one. No, we pull him in, or we draw ourselves to him even more. This is the time to get even closer to God. This is the time to, again, pray more, fast more, making sure we are getting his guidance every step of the way and not thinking we can just handle it. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. They say when God blocks it, leave it alone. But the hard part is understanding, how do I know God blocked it? How do I know this is really what he wants me to do? How do I know when he does not want me to be with someone?